Here we go again. On the eve of the 4080 Super's launch, people are already looking for what's the next juicy news, what's coming next. And there's still an embargo. NVIDIA pushed back the release of information regarding the 4080 Super, so no one's going to know about it until tomorrow when it goes live. But already on the eve, we're now getting rumors that the RTX 4090 Super are real, but not just a 4090 Super, also a Titan card. This was put on YouTube by Red Gaming Tech, and he claims that he has inside contacts that are confirming that these cards are coming. I'm going to talk about kind of what has led us here, where we're at, and why I ultimately think that these cards are going to be uninteresting and not worth it, quite frankly. So let's go over, what is the rumor. So first of all, we're talking about the 4090 Super and Titan. Looks like it's going to be much like the rest of the 40 series Super cards if this rumor turns out to be true. So it's going to be on the same 8102 chip. That's no big surprise. And what are they going to do? They're going to add 1024 more CUDA cores to the 4090 Super. They're going to increase the L2 cache, and then on the Titan, it's going to get about 1792, so a little bit bigger bump in cores. And then here's the interesting thing. So the Super refresh would still be 24 gigs of VRAM, but it's saying the Titan card would be looking at 48 gigs of VRAM. So I don't really think that'll be useful in any sort of sense for, gaming. But potentially if you got a dual purpose machine and you do some sort of information crunching that uses the GPU from home where you also do your gaming, maybe you can benefit in both regards. Look at the Titan series. But regardless, this looks pretty much in line with what NVIDIA's strategy has been with this generation's refreshes. So I don't think anything here is wild or out of the usual or unbelievable. However, just whether it's coming or not is probably questionable. And basically the reason that they're saying is that the RTX 50 series cards is going to be pushed back to quarter 2 2025. So basically NVIDIA's response is to do a refresh of the 4090 after all. Now this isn't too out of line for NVIDIA. They do make kind of wishy-washy decisions where one minute they're not going to do something, the next minute they do, and then they decide they do it and they're launching it. That's not out of the norm. So the fact that they're like, there's no 4090 Super, and then the day before we're even done cleaning up the Supers that are coming, there's now a leak that there actually is a 4090 Super. I don't think that's too unrealistic, honestly, coming from them. So kind of how we got here, and probably why a lot of people aren't going to listen to this or don't believe it's real is just how many times that this has been flagged. So, the 4090 came out in September of 2022, and almost immediately people, the tech review dust settled. People were like, holy cow, this thing's fast. If you remember back then, people were like 4090 or bust. Everything's a bad value, and it's hilarious in a generation when a $1,600 card is the only good value. I personally got a huge laugh out of that back there in September 22. But immediately people were like, what's next? So the rumor was there was going to be a 4090 Ti, and that didn't even last long at all. Here's an old article on Tom's Hardware. This is all the way back, last July 23. They're already canceling the 4090 Ti. They basically said, hey, the 4090 is fast enough. Nothing's going to touch it. We're just going to let it ride. No need. We'll focus on, the 50 series cards. Then they started the Super refreshes. Right out of the gate, they said, hey, 4090 is not going to be on it. But then right here on video cards, December, just about a month ago, a little over a month ago, there was a European retailer that accidentally listed 4090 Super cards for, about 2,000, 2,100, 2,300, 2,200. They've got 4090 Supers listed for sale. Now, obviously, this was an error. They were immediately pulled back down, and nobody really paid much attention to it because NVIDIA at the time was actively saying there is no 4090 Super. Like we're announcing and we're releasing the 4070 Super, 4070 Ti Super, and 4080 Super. So nope, didn't really have much impact to the community. People were just like, all right, cool, a retailer messed up, tell me that's never happened before. But then now, before even the end of the month of all the Super releases, we've got this new leak, and they're claiming it's going to be about 10% faster, which from just a basic increase in CUDA core and seeing kind of how the rest of the Super refreshes are going, I could buy that. I believe that's pretty accurate. You increase the CUDA cores, a little more L2 cache. Yeah, we see about 10%. Most of these refreshes are getting about 5 to 10%. The exception, obviously, is the 4080 Super. There wasn't any room left on that chip to really seek much performance. So even from NVIDIA, they've pretty much said that it's going to be about a 2 to 3% uplift. And that is really just an excuse to reset the MSRP because everybody agreed it was overpriced from the beginning, but NVIDIA will never admit that they were wrong. So rather than lowering a price, they'll just release a whole new product to make it a little cheaper to, stay in line with their marketing that their prices don't go down. But that is what it is. And then as far as the rumor goes, it's been flipped on and off so many times that people, just don't know what to believe. But this claims there's inside sources and, maybe it'll come and maybe it won't. But ultimately, I don't think it's going to be that interesting or worth it, quite frankly, for anyone to purchase unless some crazy things change. And I'll kind of talk about why. So I'm going to look at last generation to kind of give you an idea of where I'm coming from, and then we'll talk about kind of the roadmap and what we have left in this generation. So starting out with the 3090, just so we can kind of build a timeline and kind of see, like how would I feel about this purchase, or would this purchase be worth it to me? So if you would have bought a 3090 on release day, that would have come out September 2020, and you would have paid $1,500 ideally for it if you could get one before the scalpers got them, which that was still, crypto boom, different stuff. You probably didn't get one for that, but maybe you did. But that's the flagship card the day of release for the new generation. You pay $1,500. It's a lot of money, but you do it because you're an enthusiast. You got to have the best of the best. And you want to be able to enjoy it. You want to have the immersion, everything. You want to have the best of the best. So that's what it is. You paid the $1,500. So if you look at, kind of how time goes on and how performance goes on, if you had the 3090 and the 3090 Ti releases, it's about 16% faster, which, okay, that's good, I guess, for a refresh. 16% is actually pretty decent. But we're probably would not see that on a 4090 Super. I think like that 6 to 10% would be more accurate based off of just a couple more CUDA cores. But the timing is the problem. So the 3090 Ti, if you come over here, it didn't come out until January 27th, 2022. So let's call it 3 days for shipping. You get it February of 22. And it's about 16% faster than the 3090. Also, the price increases to $2,000 on the refreshed card. So now you're paying $2,000 and you're getting this card in February of 22. And it's the fastest card in the world, and it's 16% faster than the old card, and you feel great for about 7 months. Because fast forward, September of 22, the 4090 comes out. And the price goes back down to $1,599. And the 4090 is about 41% faster than your 3090 Ti. So it's almost 1.5 times as fast as the card you just spent $2,000 on 7 months ago. And that's kind of where I'm at, is when you're spending this kind of money on a graphics card, it's all about the timing. Like, if you're going to commit to a flagship purchase, you need to come out of the gate and do it on day one. So at least if you're spending that kind of money, you're getting the value out of it because you're getting the full life cycle. If you buy the 3090 in 2020 and you use it until the 4090 comes out and it was, $1,500, it's still expensive, but you're getting the full life cycle out of it and you're getting the most out of your money. And because you're that enthusiast, or maybe you're a professional who needs that kind of card, you get the next one when the 4090 comes out and there's a 41% uplift in performance and it feels great again because you're like, hey, I spent that amount of money because that's the kind of money I expect to spend, and then it's good for 2 years, and then I spend about that much amount of money again, and there's a generational uplift that makes it 40% faster. And that's something you can feel when it's almost like 1.5 times as fast. You can definitely feel that. But if you don't commit to the flagship on day one, or roughly at launch, every day that you wait, the prices just go through fluctuations. There's it goes, and nobody can predict this at the time, but it almost always happens on the flagship because they're always in demand, right? Because they're the best. Everybody wants the best. So they sell out. There's scalpers. Something crazy like the mining craze happens, or now the AI boom, or we ban them from going to foreign countries, so they try to beat the ban deadline and they ship them all out of the country ahead of time. All these things happen. You haven't been able to get a 4090 at MSRP for months, and they're starting to get better. But even right now, if you come and look at a 4090, the cheapest one, I checked 10 minutes ago and it was $17.99. I guess those are out now. It's $18.19, but there you go. They just go up and down, up and down. But my point is, if you don't buy it day one, you're just leaving yourself open to the market where you're not going to get it at MSRP. And the more and more time goes on, the shorter amount of time that you're going to benefit from all that money spent. And NVIDIA doesn't go on sale. It's not like, hey, if you're buying a mid-range card from AMD and the 6700 launches at, $500, and now you can get it from $300. Well, as time went on, the price went down, so the value was still good. NVIDIA's, their prices, they don't really ever go on sale or go down. If anything, just market fluctuations happen and they go up. So my point is, if you bought the 3090 Ti and basically got it in February of 22, and then the 4090 comes out 41% faster 7 months later, and you just spent $2,000, you're gonna feel like shit because you just spent $2,000, and 7 months later, a card comes out 41% faster for $400 less. You're probably gonna regret your purchase. The guy who bought the 3090 in 2020 is probably not going to regret his purchase because he got a good life cycle out of it. He spent what he expected to spend. He got a full life cycle. He got to enjoy it. He missed out on 16% for 7 months, and now he's back into with the 4090, killing it again. So that's kind of where I'm at with the timing. And I think it might not be that short of a cycle, but if we're in January of 24 and we're just now hearing the first rumor that this might be back on, we're not going to see that card at least until summertime. And then if you're in the summertime, depending on what they do with the pricing, you're going to be inside of a year until the 5090 is out anyway. Even if they push it back and they're like, oh, now it's Q2. It's still gonna be inside of a year that you're spending big money. And I think the best case scenario, honestly, the 4090 has been such a good seller. They're not going to do like the 4080 and come out with a super where they lower the price, in my opinion. So the best case scenario is the super comes out at like a $200 price difference. So like it basically comes out at the market price right now for the 4090. So like it's like the $17.99 for the super, and that pushes the regular 4090 back down to MSRP. I honestly think that's probably the best case scenario. But even with that, I still wouldn't recommend that you spend that kind of money this late into the cycle. If you're going to get less than a year out of a video card, it's not worth it. And if you're thinking like, well, I just buy it once and then it's good, for way longer, that's also bad because you're better off doing the mid-range card every year. Because just like we saw, the 3090 now gets beat out by like the 70s series. So if you just bought a 70s series every year, you'd probably end up spending about the same amount of money, but you'd have all the new features. Like you get the DLSS 3 instead of the 2 and like all that kind of stuff. So you'd be better off just buying mid-range every generation, because not every year, it's every 2 years, than just buying the flagship and holding on to it. That's just not usually a very good strategy, because NVIDIA gates different things behind the generations because they want you to upgrade. So that's my feeling on the price and the timing, and ultimately why I think it'll just be uninteresting. If they do release it, it's going to be like 4090 Super. It's going to get a bunch of press coverage. Tech reviewers will have a heyday looking at it for a day or so, and then the benchmark queens will get another, probably I'd guess 6 to 10% out of those CUDA cores. And then that's going to be the end of it, because I just don't think the average consumer, it'd be silly to buy it, because just like is happening right now, I bet as soon as it releases, then immediately there's going to be news about the 50 series, and you're going to get like less than 12 months use out of it, and then your card's going to get destroyed by the next generation, because the generational uplift is always massive compared to refreshes on the same architecture, which makes sense. And then the final thing that I don't think we talked about was, what doesn't make sense to me is it's claiming that this is all because of AMD and the fact that they're going to beat NVIDIA to the punch with the next generation by releasing the RDNA 4. But it's already been discussed that most likely AMD is going to avoid the flagship market on RDNA 4, and they're going to go target the mid-range. So right here, another rumor about AMD's next generation. It's hoping to be a little bit faster than the 7900 XT and target $400 to $600. So if that card comes out and they've updated their ray tracing again, bring it more on par, it's becomes more energy efficient, and it's targeting $400 to $600, I think that will be an extremely interesting card. But it's a totally different market, and I don't see why that would push NVIDIA to feel like they have to refresh their flagship when there's nothing competing with it, which is why they keep saying they're not going to do it. But now the rumor mill is basically kicking up like, oh, well, RDNA 4 is going to make it to the scene this year, so if they're pushed back to Q2 of 2025, they got to do something. Well, they don't have to do anything, because the 4090 already destroys the 7900 XT. So while it would be awesome for an AMD card to come out $400 to $600 with newer tech that can be more efficient and match that performance, that would be amazing. But it's not threatening the 4090 in any shape or fashion at all. So ultimately, that's my thoughts on it. If it does happen, it does happen. I don't think it's going to make a huge impact to anything. And I think most people that want a 4090 have probably already got one. And if they haven't, they realize that it's just time to wait. Like, now's the time to hold your cards. Don't play them, hold them. We got to wait for the 50 series, because just too much time has passed to spend that kind of money on a flagship that's going to get utterly destroyed as soon as the next series comes out. But hopefully you enjoyed watching. If you have a difference of opinion or you want to leave a comment, just do it down below, and hope you have a good rest of your day.